Now you are listening to Dr. Troy Munson with Words of Radiance. Now here is your host, Dr. Munson.
Hello and welcome, I'm Dr. Troy Munson. Have you ever had a child, or you yourself have been a child, and you see this little person that looks up to you, sees the world in you, and they've done the entire day, they've misbehaved, they've done thing after thing after thing, they've gotten in trouble, so to speak, let's say 10 times. And then they do the most unspeakable thing, is now that you're all upset at them, that they ask you for a treat or a cookie or something. And of course not of course, but perhaps maybe like I have done in the past, or you've done in the past, or somebody's done in the past, you tell them immediately, no way, you have not earned a cookie. And it's almost like it invites punishment yet again. And in our lives, I want you to start kind of looking at everything that you do almost through a childlike lens. And that childlike lens is, we're going to just ask the question, are there areas in your life where you are being punished? Maybe even condemned, and it's probably coming from you. Let's say you're doing things that you get hurt, or that you hurt yourself, or you're in bad relationships, or whatever it is. Now, I even had a client within the last couple days tell me that I was a bad kid. And I'm thinking, I know this person. There ain't nothing bad about them. And they told me that they would get spanked all the time. But their parents were in this really rocky relationship, ended up getting a divorce. I'm thinking, nah, I bet your parents were pretty upset and they would overblow some things and they would take it out on you. I mean, that's just what I'm thinking. And it's probably not far from the truth. And so now we have this idea and this belief that I'm bad and that I should be punished and that I am not worthy of being good or having good things happen. And I think it is comical because I've done a podcast similar to this one where I talked a little bit about being good. My parents said that I was good. And therefore, because I believed that I could only be good, I could never be bad. And in doing so, I remember having tremendous anxiety. My gut would hurt. And I would not sleep at night because I was so concerned all the time because I didn't want to miss the bus, because missing the bus would have made me bad. And now I wouldn't be good anymore. And so calling a child good or calling a child bad, they're both the opposite sides of the same coin. They both are fraught with guilt and with issues. And so all these things that we do that people heap upon us, like no, 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 bad, 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 just heaps guilt on us. And as we start learning, I don't even like to say it learning, but we'll call it learning. As we learn that, hey, doing this is good, doing that is bad, being this way is good, being that way is bad. As we go through this process, all it does is give us judgment and self-condemnation upon ourselves. And so like my kids, I try to be very careful not to call them good or bad. I would rather just simply let them be as they are. And I encourage them. I listen to them. I ask lots of questions to them. I help them understand their thinking about when they do something that they know they shouldn't have done. So I'm very interested in those kinds of things, but I'm not here to label my children. And because we get labeled all the time. Oh, he's a great doctor. That was a great plumber. Or, hey, did you see that awesome show? Or see that horrible show on the television? Or that awful thing that happened on the road or on the news or whatever. We're labeling and judging constantly. And this has got to stop. Until it does, there's not a lot of peace on this planet. This constant judgment. And the unfortunate thing is that any time that we judge somebody or some situation, here's the problem. It becomes inevitable that we will judge ourselves based on that same ruler of measure. And we'll judge people that we love upon it. And we'll call them good or bad. And in essence, now we start incurring guilt upon ourselves in our own little ways and trying to heap guilt on people to have them actually do things different. We're going to try to manipulate each person via guilt, and it happens everywhere on our planet and every day. And so how can we begin that process of pulling away from that guilt and shame? It's not the easiest thing. There are a lot of people that have spoken on guilt and shame, and I think it's great that they're making it an awareness thing, but ultimately that guilt and shame is literally coming from us. And so what do we do? How do we go beyond that? How do we start catching our mind doing these things? Well, the first way is definitely stop judging. And so we should all have a start doing list and a stop doing list each year. How did I do this year? Hey, I really did a great job on not bludgeoning myself when I didn't go work out or when I had a pastry or whatever. And I did a great job of eating more protein this year, or encouraging myself and not beating myself up. But also I started encouraging others. Have a start doing list and a stop doing list. But any kind of issue that is within your own mind is always going to be a foundational issue. When I say a foundational issue, it's going to be an issue of not understanding how you've been created and who created you and what you are. Not who you are, but what you are. And so if those are sticky issues with you, if you're like, well, I don't believe anybody created me, well, then this is probably not the rest of the conversation for you. But if I ask you and you look inside and you say, well, all I see is darkness inside. I don't see a lot of light in me. Okay, well, that's what your brain thinks right now, that you have a lot of dark thoughts and you think a lot of strange things that the world has placed upon you. And now you've continued to entertain those things. So what if you just simply let all those thoughts go? Since you don't have a foundation of who created you, you don't believe that, then you're going to have a foundation that's in a little different spot by simply saying, well, could I let go of all the thinking thoughts that I think? Could I just be at peace in my own mind? Could I just be still? Yes, you can. And you can do that. And I think it is a great place to begin. And when that stillness becomes profound enough for you, you're going to have to watch fear, because the ego doesn't like stillness, doesn't like peace, doesn't like love, doesn't like joy. It sees those things as the enemy. So as long as you see that and understand that, and you say, would I like a greater amount of love in my life? Would I like a greater amount of joy in my life? Would I like a greater amount of peace in my life? And if your answer is yes to those things, then you're on the right track. Now, if you have God in your life, let's say, and you realize, hey, I believe I was created by a supreme being that is love, that is light, that is everything, that is everywhere. Now we have your foundation, because your foundation is his foundation. He didn't create you with a different foundation. He has always been your source and will always be your source. You cannot be separate or apart from him, even though your mind may think that it can. It can entertain that thought. I'm not here to challenge that thought. I'm just telling you the truth. You cannot be separate from the source, because if you were, that means you're a source unto yourself, and now there's two sources. Last I checked, there is not. So if there is only one source of everything, one creator, one God, he is one. He's always been one. He's never going to stop being one, even after he created you. So you are not separate from him, and you are not a second. You are still one with him. That is your foundation. So every property that he possesses, you possess. Now, you may believe that you are bad. You may believe that you have made a mistake. You may believe that you have made an error called a sin. And that's okay, as long as you understand that it is a correctable error and that never could, never has, never will ever change what the source created you to be in the beginning. You are and forever will be as God created you. You cannot change it. No fall of man could change it. Nothing could. Now, you can believe a lie all you want, and therefore think you are different than what God created. And I'm not gonna challenge you on that, because you can think that. And that is your belief now. But just know that your belief is founded upon an error. And so I'm showing you these quintessential errors because you'll see them in young kids. And if you don't correct them there, they will grow up into dysfunctional adults, which there are the majority on our planet. So if you're trying to get some functionality back in your life and restore happiness and joy and peace within you, which is where God has always been, and find that light that is Him, that is you, then I'm definitely pointing you in that direction. That is my goal, to point you in that direction. It's still your work, and your good life and your good values and your decision to pursue that will take you closer and closer to that light until you are indeed walking only in that light and walking in that love and walking in that peace and realizing, why the hell did I not do this sooner? I wish somebody would have explained it to me in this way so that maybe I could have figured out that I could have decided much sooner in life. My goal is for you to decide sooner than tomorrow, to decide right now, and to let go completely into that moment, whether or not you believe God exists. Maybe you're just going to go for peace and love. I think that is a great thing. And what you'll find as you do that is all of a sudden you'll find what we have found, that there is this guide that is leading you. Now, you may call it intuition, but that voice gets louder and louder, and eventually you're like, you know what? There is a voice. There is somebody actually communicating with me. And that communion with God, you start to hear Him better. Sometimes it's just pictures. Sometimes it's actual words. But I'll tell you what, I don't know what communication style it is, but I hear it. It's not audible like we think, but it is definitely being communicated with. And it is the most lovely, peaceful guidance that you could ever imagine. And I am always led to greater amounts of peace, greater amounts of joy, greater amounts of happiness every time I listen to that guidance. So I encourage you to go for that guidance, because that guidance wants your best, does not want your worst. He always wants you to find Him and to be back with Him in complete, utter peace and joy and ecstasy. That's where we're going. So until next time, I hope that helps. I'm Dr. Troy Munson on Words of Radiance.